Hello friends, in this presentation I am going to talk about a very famous play, Six Characters in Search of an Author by Luigi Pirandello. Before we go ahead, I would like to acquaint you people with the background of the play. We all are well aware of the fact that literature is a reflection of society. The play Six Characters in Search of an Author was written in the year 1921 in Italian language. Prior to that, exactly 2 years before, the First World War ended. However, the effects of the war could be seen on all spheres of life, and literature could not be an exception to this particular effect. World War I was the deadliest wars in history. This war made the world feel unsafe, unstable, and chaotic even after the war ended. As I mentioned earlier, literature is a reflection of life. It is a reflection of society. So art and literature began to reflect the disillusionment and grief of the war survivors. This particular reflection could also be seen in the modernist poetry written during this period, that is, during the early 20th century. Modernist poems like British poet T.S. Eliot's famous The Wasteland expresses collective anguish of the society. This particular poem was published in the year 1922. So the effects of this war could also be seen on many writers' writing. The writers of this period struggled to make art relevant in the face of real tragedy. They adopted new techniques in order to increase art's relevance. At the same time, they intended to destabilize readers, which is one of the features of the modern writings of the period. The novels and plays of the earlier period mostly relied on conventional narrative structures. However, these structures failed to make sense in the post-war world. Hence, the writers started experimenting with different ways to demonstrate this confusion. One of the popular techniques used during this particular period in the field of literature is popularly known as stream of consciousness technique. Modernist Irish novelist James Joyce and English novelist Virginia Woolf use the stream of consciousness technique in their writing. This technique helped these writers to expose their readers to the rapid flow of thoughts in their characters' minds. The characters' thoughts are often fractured and sometimes appear nonsensical to the reader. Hence, stream of consciousness technique shows how The perception of reality can change from person to person. The discussion of this technique in this context becomes relevant because most of the plays written by Luigi Pirandello relied on the character's innermost mind and its revelation. Before we go ahead with the discussion of the play Six Characters in Search of an Author, I would like you people to know something about Luigi Pirandello. Luigi Pirandello was born in the year 1867 and he died in 1936. As I mentioned earlier, he was an Italian playwright, novelist, and a very famous writer. He was born in Girgenti, which is a part of Sicily. He studied philology at Rome and at Bonn, and he wrote a dissertation on the dialect of his native town, which was published in the year 1891. After that, from 1897 to 1922, Pirandello served as a professor of aesthetics and stylistics. His major works include novels, hundreds of short stories, and about 40 plays. He wrote a great number of novellas too. These novellas were collected under the title Novelli per un anno in 15 volumes, which were written between 1922 to 1937. However, Pirandello's greatest achievement is in his plays. He wrote a large number of dramas. They were published between 1918 and 1935 under the collective title of Naked Masks. His plays preoccupied with the problem of identity. His plays are preoccupied with the problem of identity. As for Six Characters in Search of an Author is concerned, the play was originally written in Italian as Sei personaggi in Carica di Autori in the year 1921. The analysis and deduction of a unified self are carried to an extreme in this particular play. In this play, the stage itself becomes the setting of the play. The stage here is treated as the symbol of appearance versus reality. And Pirandello's characters attempt to fulfill their self-seeking roles. This is how we can correlate Pirandello's characters uh, to what we called earlier the stream of consciousness technique, which was popularly used especially in British literature of the period. In the stream of consciousness technique, the right character's mind is revealed, exposed to readers. In the same manner, in Pirandello's plays, his characters uh, attempt to fulfill their self-seeking roles. We see them defeated by life itself. For them, life is changing. Life enables them to see their perversity. We can refer to this particular aspect as Pirandello's humor. In other words, it is an irony which arises from the contradictions inherent in life. Uh, Considering his great contribution to the field of literature, Pirandello was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1934. Now let's have some discussion related to the play Six Characters in Search of an Author. Six Characters in Search of an Author reveals what we call modernist influence in characters' fluid realities, identity confusion, and debates over the nature and importance of art. The six characters exist as art forms with unchanging stories. They are forced to live out the events of their lives over and over again. In turn, the characters force the actors and director to confront their own unstable identities as changing human beings. One of the major characters, the father, asks the director if he really knows who he is. So here we can correlate six characters in search of an author with the novels with stream of consciousness technique. The play considers what it means to be human with any meaning in a chaotic world. The unique structure of the play questions whether art and the theatre mean anything at all. When conflict arises between the needs of the characters and the director, Pirandello exposes the theatre as absurd and unreal. The characters replay events constantly, unable to move on and living in what the father calls the eternal moment. One of the characters, the boy, dies violently on stage. Thus, the post war world seemed similarly absurd, violent, and full of suffering. This is how we can say that Pirandello's play reflects the post war world and its outlook. With these words, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you so much.